The total market cap of all the stablecoin right now is about 200 to 300 billion, which depending on the day you're looking. But a recent Citibank report already projected that this will grow to be a $1.6 trillion market by 2030. You and I don't have a way to mint USDT directly, right? You can't just have open an account with Tether, do a bank transfer and expect to get USDT. The real adoption will come from mainstream adoption.
Thank you guys again for joining me. It's been, I think, more than 6 months already. Actually, almost coming to a year since I was last in Jakarta and had that really deep conversation with both of you. And a lot has happened, both from the StraitsX in Singapore side as well as the Indonesia side. But I wanted to focus for this conversation in particular around the implications of StraitsX brand refresh plus kind of like the renewed focus on kind of the global market, right? I wanted to start off with where we ended last year, which was, I think, Hendra, you're talking very passionately about the potential of marrying blockchain technology with kind of the financial service distribution that you guys have in Indonesia, what that could potentially mean for, families, mothers, children. With this, kind of renewed focus for StraitsX, how much do you think, Fazz and you guys are closer to realizing this vision?
For the longest time, Fazz has been focusing on delivering banking services, or we call it neobank, to people who are underserved by the banks. And when we mention underserved, it means access. First, access is very difficult. Second, the fees are very high. And the third time, the speed of the transaction is very slow, right? It's just very unfair for this market segment and for this kind of underserved population when it comes to financial services. And with the 10 years of expertise building these neobank services, StraitsX come as the disruptive and a very good solution for all the problems that we've been facing. The maid workers, who also maybe also the mom of the kids in Indonesia, probably in the past when these moms try to send money, the only access that they have is remittance providers like Western Union and others. And then what happens when they use the Western Union services, probably it's going to take 3 to 7 days to arrive. That makes them worrying if the money got lost somewhere. And on top of that, they will also need to pay exorbitant fees of 3 to 5%. So with StraitsX, it's almost instantaneous, eliminating the worriness of these maid workers sending the money. And also the speed is also very fast. And the fee is also reduced to less than 1% fees. And this has been rolled out and tested in big platforms like Alipay and GrabPay. And what we foresee in the future is how we can actually integrate StraitsX into the neobank apps that we have been delivering to agents, underserved workers, and underserved rural populations to also be able to benefit from these services. So I feel like this is going to be an exciting future where the infrastructure, the traditional infrastructure that's powering neobank inside Fazz Group will now be much stronger, much faster, and much more affordable with the emergence of StraitsX powering these neobank apps. So I would say that this is going to be one of the most important focus for us going forward.
Yeah, you did mention like the implications for kind of the apps and that you guys have been building in Indonesia in particular. And Tianwei, I'm sure like Indonesia is just one part of the bigger picture for you guys. Maybe you can share a little bit more broadly how the rebrand is expanding the horizons of StraitsX in terms of how you guys are delivering your value proposition and services.
Sure. So thanks, Paolo, for the questions. You think about it, the last time we met 6 months or almost a year ago, actually, right? 9 months ago, we are still only getting started. But right now, you can really see a lot of progress that has been done in the last 9 months. The launch of XUSD, our US dollar denominated stablecoin, on Binance being a major hallmark in early compliance with the upcoming well-regulated stablecoin issuance framework out of Singapore itself, has been major shift that we are no longer just a small Singapore or Southeast Asia or Indonesia-based startup to be a global player in this stablecoin field itself. So the brand refresh that we recently kicked in actually has been works in for the last 6 months itself, is that we recognize the original brand, which we have started for StraitsX more than 5 years ago, was centered around what we feel then. This was the things that we need to get right, which is to get the brand out there, to let people understand within the use cases of our market, be it Singapore and Indonesia, how stablecoin potentially can be used to disrupt some of the existing problem that we are facing for what Hendra has mentioned earlier on in terms of transaction speed, in terms of fees. What have happened over the last few years have given us a lot more confidence that the technology works and the impact that we can do are real. And with MAS and also Binance support right now, launching of XUSD, regulated stablecoin on an international #1 exchange in the world, we feel that our reach right now is beyond Southeast Asia. We are now really a global company. And with that itself, the rebrand, as you can see, has spent effort into streamlining some of the colors and tone of what we actually do. But what I'm actually extremely excited is also about the logo itself that represent both infinity, and if you look at it from a motion side, it represents a flying money, right? And that's something that we think capture very strongly of what actually we are trying to do in the next space of growth, where stablecoin is becoming the internet of money that will allow funds to be moving and flying across the world borderlessly. The potential, because of the programmable nature of it, is limitless. So in some sense, that's why I think the infinity logo actually really symbolizes a lot of things that we think we are pushing the next boundary together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wanted to zoom into that programmable nature because I think you guys have already made one step in that direction, and the recent launch that you guys did of the virtual accounts. Can you share a little bit more about that? What that means in terms of the use cases you guys now have for these for the stablecoin rails that you guys have been building the past 5 years?
Sure. I think with the launch of XUSD on Binance itself, and more importantly with our partnership with the MAS to get a well-regulated stablecoin regime, example of a US dollar stablecoin out of Singapore being done, we have managed to also secure tier 1 banking partnership from the likes of Standard Chartered and DBS Bank itself. And together with them, I think we're very proud that we probably have built out some of the world leadings or industry leadings US dollars rails. They are both compliance and also be able to meet a lot of the needs that is upcoming in the stablecoin tiers that we're actually seeing. The DVA product you talk about, which is the dedicated virtual account, basically showcase the example of how actually underlyingly utility is the most important use cases of stablecoin, right? We all talk about having stablecoin, the internet of money, but it all goes back to how this can be used in the day-to-day example that is common to a lot of traditional players like that has been working in payments itself. What we have now been able to do together with Standard Chartered and DBS is that we can allow any platforms to use our API to create a dedicated US dollar SWIFT account in the name of the customers, and the keyword being in the name of the customers in Standard Chartered or in DBS, and allow them to transact with this account for their users via SWIFT, which is supported internationally on a first-party basis, right? As long as the funding source is coming from a bank account worldwide, from a bank in their name, they will be able to fund this account. Or if they are actually sending money out, it must be sending out to a bank account in the name. We're able to do this thing right now 24/7 and globally. And when the transaction, US dollars actually land in this account, what actually underlying happens is that there will be automated minting of XUSD, which is a regulated stablecoin issued out of Singapore with MAS, will be actually transmitted to the destination address of this user, or the vice versa, actual sending for funds back is actually a redemption of XUSD. So with that itself, we're now having a product that allow international platform and exchanges to be able to grant their user a tier 1 bank account to be able to mint and redeem a US dollar stablecoin regulated by MAS, right? And that becomes the foundation for a lot of application that can build on top of it, especially helping to solve a lot of compliance-related problems, because now funds coming out that's transferring in and out of this account will be clearly showing that the actual underlying owner of this account in terms of their name. And for a lot of FIs, especially international tier 1 FI, which have very strict AML controls like we do, this is an absolutely necessary step to help streamline the AML process, because they will then know that who is the underlying users they'll be interacting with, which they can apply the appropriate AML and sanction requirements.
Yeah, so I guess it's really a compliance layer that you've added to kind of strengthen the connectivity between kind of like the Web3 aspect with kind of like the Web2 with Swift and all that. A lot more institutions are recognizing the value of this. There's a lot of headlines now. There's the Circle IPO, Stripe acquiring Bridge, Thailand's mBridge project, and I think even Indonesia, the project Garuda. I wanted to get your view, especially from the Indonesia kind of side, like what the value is, especially seeing how much regulatory momentum Singapore is doing. Like what's the view from Indonesia in terms of from a regulatory standpoint as well, and institutional standpoint of making it easier to kind of adopt these types of technologies.
And maybe before this, let me quickly jump on this that you just mentioned, Paulo. I think one of the big things that we have over here at Syn is that we think the next phase of growth in the whole stablecoin market, as you can see here, today we are dominated by both Tether, which is really unregulated, and Circle, which claims to be regulated in US. The total market cap of all the stablecoin right now is about 200 to 300 billion, which depending on the day you're looking. But a recent Citibank report already projected that this will grow to be a $1.6 trillion market by 2030, which is not too far away. We're less than 5 years away from 2030 itself, right? And that's really, truly astonishing. And if you deep dive into that, you will realize that the growth cannot come from the crypto trading industry on its own. The crypto market as of today, as I checked this morning, is just $3 trillion, right? So it cannot be 1.8 trillion of that will be just, 1.6 trillion of it just coming from the crypto trading. The real adoption will come from mainstream adoption. And this is why I think that it sets us apart as a regulated stablecoin issuer out of Singapore, and more importantly, having tier 1 banking support, is that unlike like Tether and even Circle in some sense, right, they do not have banking support, and most of the transactions are done on a peer-to-peer basis, right? For example, today, you and I don't have a way to mint USDT directly, right? You can't just have open an account with Tether, do a bank transfer and expect to get USDT, or vice versa. You can't figure out how to redeem directly USDT. And Circle has similar hard requirement itself, right? And that's because there's a lack of banking payment support coming from banks like DBS and Standard Chartered or JP Morgan worldwide, right? That most of us actually holds our money with. And that's the clear differentiation that we have, right? Because we are a regulated stablecoin issuer with strong banking support, we are now directly able to, what I explained through the DBA product, give an account that allow any consumer or any corporate out there to be able to mint and redeem using the existing payment infrastructure that they're very used to. And with that, maybe I'll hand it over to Hendra to talk more about how Indonesia is seeing this as well.
Yeah, I think the US just passed the Genius
Act to the Senate, yeah.
What does it mean, right? So it's more than just Circle IPO valuation, but what does this new underlying Genius bill from the US government will create effect into the whole financial industry? I mean, we all know that US is one of the front runner when it comes to building new technologies. One of the very important things now is AI, right? But recently we saw that with this Genius bills and also the stablecoin development, I think stablecoin will bring the wave into the financial service industry. I would say that what Tianwei was saying in the past, before all these developments, actually stablecoin has been popularized as the way to buy and sell crypto assets. But I think for the next 5 years, what is exciting is how actually it's going to expand beyond just crypto to things that is covered by banks and neobanks. So think about things like cross-border transfer from the maid workers to their kids. Secondly, we can think about traveler who are traveling from their home countries to tourism places and then trying to spend the money beyond their local currencies. There's going to be cross-border payment in this case, like what we observed with GrabPay and Alipay that we have tested the pilot in Singapore. Beyond that, there is a lot more things, right? Like tokenized deposits, tokenized payables that we pilot with Amazon, tokenized real-world assets. If you think about this, basically, we can think of stablecoin as the new platform where all the future neobanks or future bank disruptors will be built. And what does it mean? The whole banking and financial service industry will be rewritten. And then I think the best platform to build all these new platforms in the future will be the regulated stablecoins. While platform like Tether maybe is enough for buying and selling crypto assets, but when you think about expanding stablecoins to all these other real-world use cases that I mentioned, like for banks and neobanks, you need to be regulated. And that's how we are very confident and excited about the future of StraitsX, because not only we are a stablecoin that is powerful enough because we are being listed in some of the biggest exchanges like Binance and Coinbase, but also we are regulated in the sense that we can actually be at the front seat to capture all this expansion into the real-world assets. And also, you need to remember that for the past 10 years, we actually live with the real-world use cases like payments, neobanks. For some of the most non-tech savvy and underserved users living in the villages. Imagine if this stablecoin can get to the hands of these people, how big is the possibility that we can enable with these new stablecoin developments? So I think Circle IPO is exciting, yes. Genius Bill Act is exciting, but it comes back to our status as a regulated stablecoin and our ability to deliver something that is usable by a lot of populations in emerging markets like Indonesia, in the villages, for all their daily payments and daily neobank use cases. We hope that, like what Tianwei was saying, we are now a global company. If we can bring this to Indonesian, what if one day we can also bring this to worldwide through partnerships or others? So this is a very big market and exciting momentum for us, and we just want to capitalize on this. Yeah.
Right. My follow-up question for that is, creating this bridge towards real-world use cases. What edge is it? Really more of a compliance kind of game that you see this kind of progressing forward from a competitive point of view, like whoever builds out the compliance stack first, or whoever does that first will kind of like have the biggest advantage. Like, what other modes do you potentially see players like you guys having as this progresses towards that 1.6 trillion kind of market in 2030?
I could really jump on that, right? So I think Hendra probably will agree on this thing. I think fintech, what we just talked maybe on the car ride over here, that fintechs, one of the first things that you always need to get done is to sort out compliance, right? Licenses and compliance are actually the long-term investment of a company, and ultimately we are a regulated institution. We need to play by the rules itself. It is a long-term investment. It's also more the mode of the business, right? But alone, just with the licenses and compliance is not really enough. Actually, the true mode of the business that we have built out over the last 10 years is really the distribution that we have, right? Be it the 200,000 offline Warong's agents that we have onboarded, or be it the 35,000 Grab merchants now that can actually be supporting scan and pay via stablecoin. The real actual mode, or what we have, is our strength of our business being a payment infrastructure player for the last 10 years itself is beyond, of course, the licenses that we have, is beyond just the distribution that we have, but also the trust, right? The fact that we have been known to be the player that support real world use cases, that work with bank regulators around the world to actually bring about the real world usage of payment that solve people's day-to-day problems, right? And most of the customers won't be asking, can you accept stablecoin? Can I pay with stablecoin? Most of the customers will be asking, when will I be able to get my payment? How much will this cost me, right? So we really see stablecoin and the likes of all this technology as just a tool to bring about solving real world problems. And what we have been doing for the last 10 years give us basically the momentum and also the infrastructure to basically place out the what we can do in the next 5 years.
Yeah. No, I think sometimes stablecoin, in the context of this conversation, sometimes it's kind of a misnomer because the word coin kind of denotes like a token or a digital asset. When you guys are really talking about kind of like the rails, the platform itself that you guys are building. And I guess that image kind of, there's some conflict in that image. I wanted to talk about, I think StraitsX recently has received a lot of recognition for kind of its ability to kind of the legal aspect of StraitsX and compliance and, protecting against fraud and all these different things in Singapore in particular. Now that StraitsX is going global in that sense, like how do you see scaling this trust as well and scaling these protections for consumers as well?
No, I think it's again what I just mentioned previously, like the trust exactly. What exactly is trust, right? I think we've been talking about this for quite a while. That even though we say have blockchain, we have trustless system and stuff, but we must always understand that in the real world we're actually dealing with humans, and humans are the one that still basically cares about the history of the company, what you do on a daily, who does it actually represent, right? You can always say the software you don't have is always right, but people actually need to have a trust anchor where they actually can bet a lot of their financial future on, right? So in that sense, it goes back to the things that we do for the last 10 years, right? Being compliance to all the regulation, passing all the MAS audit or assisting police investigation for the last 10 years, which is a constant investment that we have made with the awards and licenses that we have attained over the last 10 years across Singapore and Indonesia. Is a showcase and a hallmark of the kind of effort that we constantly have to invest into to gain the trust of regulator, to gain the trust of the consumer? Or is it the customer support agents that we painstakingly train and enable to basically be the frontline staff to deal with a customer complaint, right? Because when things go wrong, people cannot be saying that I want to talk to a software. They want to talk to a human that basically will solve their problems. And stuff like that are the stuff that we have been investing heavily over the last 10 years and will continue to invest to build up trust. And what actually, when we say about the scaling part here, is that it's just basically be building on this foundation that we have now that the reach can now be a lot more borderless because of the interoperability and the borderless nature of blockchain, right? The customers does not have to be based in Singapore or does not have to be based in Indonesia to get the same level of trust and the same level of assurance that we have built out on the customer support and the technology over the last 10 years.
And so, my last question before we wrap this up is moving into like 2030, the expansion that you guys view for Fazz and StraitsX, is it more of a distribution, kind of just building a distribution, as you mentioned earlier, that being like a really key moat for the company, like finding more partners and, unlocking more potential customers?
First, definitely stablecoin is a new thing that is going to rewrite a lot of rules. We saw that when there is a new revolution like mobile technology, many of incumbents will be replaced by the new players who are adopting the new stuff, right? And then the way we think about stablecoin is not about the coin itself, but it's about the fundamental, how it's going to change the way financial service being delivered in the future. In the past, with the emergence of Apple Store and Google Play, we saw that all the traditional banking by being replaced by digital banks or like neobanks, like Revolut and Nubank, etc., etc. And we saw that all these players are killing the existing incumbents. So stablecoin is kind of like this mobile technology is going to change the whole playbook. And I believe that the future controller of the banking market share will be built on stablecoin. That's for sure. Just like Nubank and Revolut is successful because being built on mobile technology, I think stablecoin is going to be important. And what does that mean, right? First, for our own neobank itself within Fazz Group, we'll need to adapt ourselves to capitalize on this technology so that we can build distribution with this technology. Because like what we have discussed before, right? Stablecoin actually making a lot of things much better, much more affordable, and much faster. So actually, this is a very good value prop for the users. And then we should try to use this value prop to get viral growth and get as many distribution as possible. But on the other notes, beyond our own ecosystem of neobank apps for the agents and the underserved customers in the rural, there are also many banks and other players who also want to capitalize on this technology. And the way we think about it is that we can be the underlying infrastructure to help them shift to this new, exciting stablecoin infrastructure that will make them better, faster, and even cheaper. Those are the reasons why we can onboard many of the big banks like K-Bank in Thailand, Alipay in China, and also GrabPay in Singapore to be onboarded into our stablecoin platform as well. I would say that the stablecoin itself provides a very differentiated product that will enable our own ecosystem of neobank apps to grow very fast, but also enable our partner who want to adopt our SDK to also benefit the same fast growth, And because of this differentiation, then we can use this stablecoin to build a very strong distribution across our partners and our own ecosystem of neobanking apps. So it's kind of go hand in hand between the differentiation and the distribution.